Morning. Welcome back to the Midwest Morning Coffee Report with yours truly, Midwest Box Trucking. And the topics of discussion today are going to be Amazon Relay as a whole. The peak season turnout thus far, popular gig app volume, as well as planning and tracking costs and expenses. And then finally, maintenance or a lack thereof. So as you guys come in, do me a favor, hit the like button. Brian Heaven, I see you. What's happening? Let me know where y'all tapping in from. And as normal, or as usual, I don't like to make these morning live streams really long, so I plan to get in and out. But it's just a few things that I want to run through really quickly, and I'm gonna get y'all out of here. But yeah, let me know where y'all tapping in from. And I want to say a week ago, I did a long form video where I went through a slew of the changes pertaining to Amazon Relay here in 2024 going into 2025. And I'm actually going to do something maybe like a part 2 here shortly within the next week or two, because just to kind of stay in the time frame guidelines for some of the videos, I try not to make them too long. I also understand that individuals nowadays honestly just have a short attention span. So I try not to make my videos too long and drawn out. But yeah, it's going to be a part 2 because it's at least 4 or 5 different new rules that's been implemented that I have not touched on. So as I stated, I'm going to touch on those and just bring everybody up to speed to make sure individuals enter into 2025 well informed and are able to avoid some of the mistakes that we've seen over the course of the last couple years, which are kind of like cause and effect. Because due to certain events or occurrences, that's why some of these rules have been implemented. I touched on the photo recognition and some that I left out because I was saying that a lot of it stems from the semi drivers and the booking of team loads single-handedly. And something that I left out was they're requiring both drivers on team loads. That's why I say it's so much I have to do 2 separate videos, but they're requiring both drivers when arriving and entering a lot for a team load to pass photo verification, which, as I stated, is photo recognition. So in the past, you could, with one driver, roll in and pick up a team load. Only one driver had to pass the photo recognition. Within the last, I want to say, it's been 2 to 3 months, they've implemented a new rule where if a team load is being picked up, then both drivers have to pass the photo verification. They both have to go into the app and take a photo. So that's something that is new as well. And it's just a few other things that, like I said, I'm going to touch on. But a lot of the team load issues is why we see some of the changes. And if you watch the relay load board, which I know a lot of the box truck drivers don't really pay attention to the semi or the bobtail side of the relay load board. But if you look, there's now an abundance of team driver loads since that rule has been implemented. So you put two and two together and you tell me what you think, was an issue or wasn't. Because like I said, now they're emailing and sending out the little messages through the app saying it's an abundance of team driver loads available daily. So now the team driver loads aren't being booked since that's been implemented. So Amazon is just picking up on a lot of different things and constantly implementing different measures in order to avoid different situations. Somebody else that stopped me in a lot at one of the Amazon facilities, he was telling me something that I wasn't even aware of. I guess that it's been some issues where some trailers have been moved and not appropriately. So not by the load board, or, they didn't book the trailers, but somehow got into the lot. And I guess they're trying to finagle something with the trailers and moving them to a different spot and then trying to come. So it's so much going on that it's things that I don't even know that's occurring. But a lot of this is why we see a lot of the changes pertaining to Amazon Relay in a nutshell. So I kind of see the cause and effect side of things, and it kind of makes things difficult for individuals, especially during times like now, peak season, where, as we know, the last 3+ weeks, rates have been elevated, and that's something I'm going to touch on as well. But yeah, it's still solid on the load board side. But in order to be successful during this peak season, you have to maintain your performance, especially with Amazon Relay, but not only pertaining to Amazon, just in general. So that's why I say a lot of these happenings and dealings greatly affect individuals. A lot of individuals make it right to this point or a month ago, 2 weeks ago, and experience a breakdown or an unfortunate event where they do something and that impacts their performance score. So it's different situations that determine how successful you can be. But as I stated, just following, the load boards, the gig apps, and so forth. And that's why I'm glad and I like to do these later in the week, because it's kind of a week recap, if you will, where I can kind of report to you guys what I've seen throughout the week. I believe I did one of these like 7 days ago. So this week, most of what I've seen with the gig apps just this morning, let's just talk currently. Mothership has posted a moderate amount of loads. I'm not going to say an abundant amount, but they've posted a moderate amount of loads this morning. I got a call from Curry right around like 5 something this morning. It's a load that they've been trying to move going somewhere in Indiana, and they're calling around trying to move that. Amazon, as I stated, has been solid on the rates and volume from what I've seen in my area for the last 3+ weeks. And if individuals remember last year, a lot of what we saw pertaining to peak season was within like a 3-week time frame. It came and it went really quick. It started late, it ended early, if you will. This year, it's been steady straight through. If you just want to run your truck at night after 10 p.m. and do a night into the morning load with Amazon, you could easily make, even with a subpar performance score, 700, 800, 900 a night. And that's just running your truck one load a night. So you can kind of add that up and see what individuals are able to make. Most individuals are doing multiple loads a day. As I stated, individuals are still using 2-3 drivers per truck, because you always got to have a backup. But it's individuals that's still pushing these trucks, in upwards of 20 hours per day with very little downtime. So the volume is there across the board, in my opinion. The rates are elevated and have been for the last few weeks. The gig apps are steady. I know individuals that's making $500 to $750 a day just off gig apps. Individuals that don't run Amazon Relay. I mean, they just pretty much work off gig apps, and they're making, $500 to $750 a day. Of course, you have to negotiate and understand what to or what not to run for. Another thing is, some of these gig apps, even the shorter runs, what you have to go through to complete these runs may not be worth your while. So you just got to kind of test the waters and see what you do or don't want to move your truck for. But the work is there. The money is there. You just have to put yourself in position to be profitable. And that was something that I was going to touch on as well. Just kind of numbers and, expenses and so forth. Because just yesterday, that's why I say a lot of this stuff is just current. And I don't take a lot of Ubers, but when I do take Ubers, I usually kind of try to, pick the driver's brain, see how they like it. Usually ask them, is it worth it? Is it profitable? And so forth. And usually I get a decent response. Yesterday, I talked to a guy and I was just asking him, like, you do Uber, is it worth it? And what he was saying greatly reflected, a lot of what we see pertaining to the trucking industry, and more specifically the box truck business, because he was saying he was profitable. But the reason why he was profitable was because he understood how to operate, because they're the same as us. They're 1099 employees. So, they're owner operators. And a lot of these guys deal with a lot of the same issues that we deal with. So I've talked to multiple different Uber drivers over the course of the last 2-3 years. And like I was saying, he pretty much just broke down all of his costs. He said he runs about 300 miles a day. He told me he gets 3 sets of front brakes, 2 sets of back brakes per year. He gets a set of tires every November. It's a reason why he gets them in November. I told him I already understood, especially like when I was in a Sprinter van, you changing all of those tires at least once a year. You definitely will want to do it in the wintertime as opposed to in other seasons. And I mean, that's just common sense. We all know why, inclement weather. So he was explaining that to me, and I was just like, I told him, like, from talking to you, I could kind of tell that you one of the smarter Uber drivers, and that he just understood different aspects of, like I said, his costs, maintenance, and so forth. And everything he did it on a schedule. As I stated, he could tell you how many miles he ran on average per day, what he spent in fuel. He also went into how he enjoyed the higher fuel prices because it was a larger tax write-off at the end of the year. So I just let him talk and I'm just listening. And I'm like, you could tell that he knew what he was doing. He was operating with a plan. He was tracking his numbers and he was also completing necessary maintenance. So as I stated, even though it's an Uber driver and a smaller vehicle, a lot of this pertains to box trucking or a trucking company in general. And it's just amazing that even in a smaller vehicle, because I've said this a bunch of different times, I think a lot of this is just common sense and individuals just need to do the work. But even in a smaller vehicle working for Uber, this guy, he down to a T tracked everything that he needed to be profitable. And he also went into how it was certain areas that he didn't go to because he stated that some areas Uber wouldn't even let him run due to tax differences. Because depending on, I guess, where you run Uber, it's a certain tax bracket. So some places you're not allowed to go. But he said there were places that he was allowed to go that did not charge a tax. And he would go to those areas because he could then take a run, say from Chicago to Iowa. And then in Iowa, due to their tax or them not having tax on Uber drivers, he was then able to run there and make it make sense for him to go that distance. But he said it was areas that he would not take a ride for because he understood that once he got to that area, he pretty much had to deadhead back. So, yeah, we had that conversation and I just thought that was something good to bring to the space pertaining to staying on top of maintenance. And why I talk about this is because I've been to a couple different shops and I've talked to a couple different maintenance techs. So when I'm out doing different things pertaining to the truck, I always, as I stated, try to get information from different individuals, and then I try to bring it back to you guys. But what I'm hearing from the maintenance techs is a lot of individuals are not doing maintenance. And one tech, because I just asked him, I said, well, hey, how's it been? Is it busy right now? You know, and he like, nah, it's slow. And I'm like, so why do you think that is? He like, man, individuals now are just riding with issues. If the truck don't actually break down or isn't actually breaking down, then individuals just keep rolling. So he like, we're extremely slow. So then I went to another shop about a week and a half later. True story. And I brought that conversation up to another maintenance tech. And I was like, hey, I was at another shop and they were just like, it's extremely slow. And they said a big part of the reason is that different individuals are not doing planned maintenance, even some more pertinent maintenance, if it's not causing them to break down. And he was like, that's 100% true, man. Dudes are not getting maintenance done right now. And it's been that way for probably the last 6 months or more. So pertaining to maintenance and running the trucks, individuals are something that I talked about a while back, just kind of running on the limb. They're, you know, winging it and just getting by however they can to keep the truck moving. And I mean, I understand you have to do what you have to do, but at the same time, a lot of those practices tend to bite you at the worst possible time, like now. And a lot of individuals don't realize that You run in the truck, and like I said, I get it, because I ran in rentals. I see a lot of the issues. I've, been advised by some of these lights, you could just keep rolling, and it'll be a week. You say, I'm gonna make, 2, 3 more thousand, and then I'm gonna go in, and then it keep running, and so you keep going, and then it keep running, so you keep going. So over the course of a period of time, that can have a large strain on just the drivetrain and so forth on a vehicle. But like I said, I get it at the same time. You have to do what you have to do. But I thought that was something that I wanted to bring up, as well as just preventative maintenance, where in a lot of these areas, it's getting extremely cold. So if you have any, just idea of how these trucks operate right now, you definitely want to have anti-gel in your tanks, and you want to drain the actual air tanks of any water, moisture, and so forth. Another thing that a maintenance tech advised me was to use air brake antifreeze, which a lot of people don't talk about. But I just talked to somebody whose airlines froze. Once that happens, the truck is inoperable, and you either need a tow truck or a mobile mechanic to come out because your airlines have froze. So I've had 2 different maintenance techs advise me of that as well. And some areas have mild weather, but a lot of areas have extremely cold weather. And you park the truck, it's perfectly fine, and you come out and something is frozen, and it's starting to happen. And usually towards the end of December, from what I've seen, since I've been running a trucking company, for some reason, we have like just a big freeze. And a lot of the last 2 years, a lot of trucks froze up towards the end of December. Sometimes it don't hurt, and I've done it. Man, I done went out at 3 a.m. and started my truck up. Let it run for 20 minutes. This just was a couple weeks ago. I didn't feel like it ran long enough. I drove it and got fuel. I just wanted to, you got to check the trucks. You will book a load, leave out, go to start the truck, boom, nothing. If that's with Amazon, just hang up, your performance score and so forth for at least 6 weeks. Because, it's just going to be a bad situation. So I'd advise individuals to be going out periodically. I did it this morning. Go out, start the truck up, let it run. Frequently add anti-gel, if not every time you fill up, but often. It's 14 people in here. Hit the like button. Somebody hit the like button for me. Often. Put anti-gel into your tank, and make sure that you keeping this stuff in motion, because you got to worry about your fuel. You also have to worry about your actual engine block and the oil in the engine block. So anti-gel, I've talked about this, will keep your fuel from gelling. But you also got to plug up like a block heater. Most of these trucks have block heaters. You need to like plug that block. And I'm going into this because all of this pertains to maintenance. And believe it or not, one day you'll come out, even if you do live in some of the areas where the temperature is mild. One day you're going to come out and encounter one of these issues, because South and so forth, they also experience freezing, rain, and like big drops in temperature. It's the sudden drops in temperature that cause these occurrences. So you go in, it's mild, you come out, everything frozen. Usually your fuel is too. And then you got like petrol jelly, a diesel jelly in your tank. And that just causes a whole bunch of issues. Even once you get that stuff defrosted, you still need to go in and change filters and check fuel lines and so forth. So to avoid that, that's why I'm going through a lot of these different situations because I'm talking to the maintenance techs. It's not something that I'm getting off of the internet. I talk to maintenance techs in depth, and they tell me different things about, what they're experiencing running a shop. And a lot of individuals, as I stated, are just rolling. And I get it. But once again, that's a dangerous practice. And especially when you're dealing with a company as strict as Amazon. As I stated in the video, I did it like a week ago. A lot of individuals are just shocked and I'm like, this like half of the changes. I left a few out and it's some I probably ain't even remembered to touch on. So you got to protect yourself and maintenance is a big part of it. So that's why I thought this would be a good time to touch on that, especially with the inclement weather. Like in a lot of areas, it's below freezing right now. So you definitely want to stay on top of that maintenance. So back pertaining to peak season, because, that's just a big topic. And I see a lot of in these Facebook groups where a lot of you individuals are posting like the screenshots of the loads that you got. I see a lot of individuals making a lot of money. I see individuals, I saw a few individuals posting 1,500 for 250 miles. So that's really good money for the time spent. And yeah, I would just try to take advantage of it. I expect this peak season to easily surpass what a lot of individuals saw last year, earnings wise. So I think most people have already earned as much or maybe more than what they made last year. Like I said, in my opinion, it was 3 weeks max, and then, cut. And that's just being honest. We got a solid 3 weeks. Some people would say 2. Well, this year we've got over a solid 3 weeks, and they've been more abundant pertaining to the rates and the volume. I've had 2 different individuals text me this morning just showing me different stuff that they're seeing. And like I said, a lot of individuals with subpar performance scores are still having success. You just got to get out and do the work, run the trucks, and so forth. Brian Hevner say about to do my dedicated route, heading in. Yes, sir. And see, that's where it's at. I think a lot of individuals need to look into trying to get something dedicated going into the new year, because it's going to get super slow. So you will want to be looking right now to secure loads, work, freight, and so forth for your truck in January, February, and March. And that's just a forewarning. I would be looking now because everybody's going to be looking in a month or 2. So right now, everybody focused on making money. I would be trying to reach out. And a lot of these companies are going to tell you that it's slow, but you could be the first in line. I've had different companies tell me, hey, check back in a month or 2. In a month or 2, they'll just tell different individuals they don't have anything. So you want to be reaching out, putting your bid in now, taking a note, calling back, and then refreshing them and saying, hey, I talked to you mid-December about some freight, and you told me to call back. I'm just doubling back, to check and see if you got anything. So that's a lot of what I will be doing, because the dedicated routes are where it's at for the most part. Now, you do have some that won't be worth your while. I've ran some of those as well, but you don't know until you do them. So if you don't get out seek the opportunities, show up, and see if it fits what you're looking for in order to move your truck, then there's no way to know, because nobody's going to tell you. If they are good contracts, most people going to try to keep them a secret. If it's worth your while, most individuals aren't going to talk about them. So that's part of just doing the legwork and figuring out what works or doesn't. But at the end of the day, you want to be getting out and seeking these opportunities now, because yeah, the dedicated routes is definitely where it's at. Right, get the likes up. It's 14 people in here, 9 likes. Hit the like button. Running Warrior, appreciate you. I ain't seen you the last couple streams. Good to see you. Rope Jr., what's happening? Good to see you. Appreciate you for blessing the stream. Jay Dillard say he finally caught a live. And that's why I'm doing these during different time frames, in order to kind of open them up to a wider audience. I have a habit of doing the live streams late, but but also with me doing like an episode style of live stream, it's kind of prompting me to do them more often. So this is just the first of a few episode style live streams that I plan to roll out. I'm going to roll out something that I do later at night as well, but I'm just working on different features for that particular setup to make it more interactive and, you know, just worth your while. You know, those will be a little more engaging. These, I kind of just want to keep individuals up to date. And I aspire to do more than one of these a week, but one of these a week should be sufficient. But if I could do 2 or 3, you know, that'd be great as well. But I always say this, and I see it, you know, even if it's not at the pace, you know, expected, I see it overall. You know, I do these based off of engagement. And usually I do at some point see it. So, you know, I'm happy with that. But that's why I ask individuals, when you're in, hit the like button. You know, it take a couple seconds. Subscribe to the channel as well. I just try to bring valid information to the space to keep individuals informed. You know, that's my goal with all of these. And I know for a fact that it's something that you can always take away from this in order to better yourself and push your trucking company forward. Because a lot of this, as I stated, it pertains to not only box trucking, but just trucking companies in general, just like the relay changes with the photo recognition and so forth. But yeah, it just to me it goes hand in hand. It's not just box trucking, because this pertains to everybody. Terry Fisher, what are you seeing peak season wise in your area? You know, where are you? I don't think you told me where you checking in from, but Terry Fisher, where are you running at? What region or what market? Oh, I see. Okay, I see it here. They roll, yeah, these. GA. Okay, yeah. I don't know. From what I've heard from a few different individuals, Georgia's rates are elevated, but I don't know if they kind of reflect, you know, what we're seeing here. I think they would be somewhat similar, but in my opinion, Georgia is a little more saturated than, Illinois, and not by much because it's become a lot more saturated here as well. But I know Georgia has never been. You guys don't see exactly what we see here, just due to market and location. But from what I've seen, I think some of those screenshots that I was speaking of, they came from the southern regions, North Carolina, South Carolina, maybe even your area. I know a lot of the people in those posts are owner operators from the southern markets, Georgia and so forth. So I haven't looked into you guys' rates much. I know it was another area that I did look into, and yeah, it looked like before peak season rates, just to be 100% honest with you. But I've talked about this as well. A lot of those areas where the volume and the rates never increased are areas that are notorious for having low rates in general. And they've never actually seen highly, elevated rates during different times as far as prime and peak season. And I think that's just due to, I guess, the capacity, or I don't know how you want to say it, but the amount of people that live in these different areas, because I mean, it just all goes back to what people do or don't order. And then some of these smaller areas that you may live in, the freight may go to a larger post office in a different area. So it just may not be opportunities there. And you'll see that, like every small town or market, their post office does not get Amazon delivered. It may go to a larger USPS facility 15 or 20 miles away, or even more. And then they work it into those smaller areas. So it's all depending on where you live. But if you constantly see subpar rates in different markets, then like I said, those markets usually just see those type of rates in general. Rogue Jr. I'm actually just starting in the industry. Finally got my truck and authority going very recently. Congratulations. And yeah, good luck. I would say for you, like being new, first and foremost, like Amazon Relay being off the table, I would try to get on some gig apps. That would be like the first thing I would do, is look into different gig apps where, they aren't seniority specific pertaining to your authority. They'll let a new owner operator run. And then it's different brokers that will work with new authorities. You just kind of gotta go out and make contact and see who will and who won't. A lot, they won't work with you. That's why I got a lot of people straight to the gig apps and then Indeed.com. Those are probably going to be your best two options to find loads to move your truck for the first 3 to 6 months. And after that, a lot more opportunities will open up for you, definitely. But it's going to be rough. Just expect that starting out. That way you don't get discouraged, because, that first 3 to 6 months is going to be, a struggle. But that's going to make or break your trucking company. So I just say hang in there. It may not be exactly what you expected starting out. The Midwest is always good for box trucks. Yeah, that's true. I mean, just our location, it's a lot of different opportunities to move your truck in different directions. But what I've seen, and this is just being honest with you guys, is a lot of individuals tend to run the same lanes. Like That's why it's a load that's been sitting on Curry's app for 5-6 hours this morning. Because, and I know why, it's a area that individuals don't want to go to. And it only take a few hours, but that's just an area in Indiana that a lot of individuals don't want to run into, especially with the opportunities that's right here locally. So you're looking at, and you may get 800 for that run, but you could make 800 locally, which is going to be two different things profit wise. So that's what you have to think about. And that's what a lot of individuals don't realize as well. Some I'm going to talk about later, but just differences pertaining to profit, because 800 OTR and 800 locally, or 800 regionally and 800 locally, is two different things profit wise. It's not the same, because it's two different things cost wise. And that's why I say that. To run locally and make $800, you're going to incur a lot less cost as opposed to running OTR or even regionally, because you're going to burn more fuel. You could likely incur more maintenance, and you're dealing with more risk associated with moving your truck into a lot of different areas. And that's part of the reason why a lot of individuals don't want to take certain loads pertaining to just regulations and so forth. I was talking to a maintenance tech last night, and what he was telling me, because I was talking to him and I'm telling him about, different aspects of issues that I worry about with my truck, especially during the cold. And he works on a lot of diesel trucks, mainly semis. And what he told me, he said, man, most truckers, if they truck start up, because I was telling them, I would never want to end up in a situation where my truck goes into D-rate, because that opens up a bunch of different issues. And most people know what D-rate is, but if you don't, it's when an issue arises with some component of the truck that causes the truck to start to be capped at certain different miles per hour. Sometimes it'll go down to 55 and it'll stay there for a period of time. It'll derate again to 5 miles per hour. But usually it'll derate 3 times. Sometimes it'll derate once. It all depends on the model of the truck you have. But yeah, I was talking to the mechanic and I was telling him that, you want to watch certain things, because you don't want to end up out here just running, as I stated, winging it, and then you end up in D-rate. And he was like, man, most truckers, if the truck start up, the only thing they worry about when they rolling is DOT. And he's talking about and I'm like, these are the different things and different conversations that I have. And that's why I bring it back to the space, because some of these statements just be kind of crazy to me. But he like, yeah, if the truck start up, man, people don't worry about. And I'm like, how could you not worry about going into D-rate? Because then you got to worry about a tow and $500 or $1,000 or $2,000, just in moving the truck to where it could begin to be repaired. So I don't know, but exactly what he was saying was, yeah, if the truck's starting, people rolling. And that's what we see. That's why maintenance is slow right now. These shops, yeah, it's tight for a lot of different maintenance techs due to these different issues. Any particular gig apps? I mainly use Curry. I use Mothership somewhat. And I have other gig apps on my phone, such as Freight. And I will have to make a list, but I got a bunch of gig apps. I only utilize a few, but it's an abundance of gig apps out there. We got 18 people in here right now. Hit the like button for me if you have not done so already. Barbara Lee. I tried running Amazon loads. I booked one in the app, and I am not seeing the load on the navigator after booking. What are you thinking? Refresh the app. Refresh the app. If that don't work, log out, log back in. If that don't work, you got to delete the whole app and reinstall it. It might take like 5 minutes, but sometimes Amazon will tender a load, and it could take 5 to 10 minutes for that load to show up in your tendered loads. That's happened to me a few different times, because I've seen individuals book another load because they don't see the load they just booked, and then you're going to end up with 2 loads. So if you're not seeing the load and you don't see a cancellation, I would refresh the app. And if that don't work, like I said, log in, log back out. And if that don't work, then delete the app. And if you still don't see it and you don't see a cancellation, then I would contact ROC, because it could have been canceled, but it's not showing. And that happened too. Like, some will cancel and it won't show in your canceled trips. So you gotta you gotta you might have to refresh that as well. So if not, just call ROC and they'll tell you, they'll be able to see what happened with the trip. But yeah, I've seen individuals get in sticky situations having that happen, where they'll end up booking another load, because this might be at a point where it's a bunch of loads coming up. So an individual will book a load, they won't see it in their trips, they'll look for a few minutes, and then they'll turn around and book another load. And once they do that, that'll have them tendered 2 loads. And now you got to reject one. So if you see that, like I said, it's good that happened real time. And yeah, you good, Barbara Lee. I appreciate you bringing that up, because yeah, that's something that a lot of individuals run into. Like I said, I dealt with that like a week ago, and usually I just wait, and after 5 or 10 minutes, I'll log out, log back in. But it's been times that I've had to literally delete the whole Relay app and then reinstall it to make it, kind of catch real time. And that's some also that's happening with Curry's app, because I talked about that recently as well, where Curry is giving out violations once they tender you a load and then you fail to move to the pickup location after, say, 15 or 20 minutes. And one time it was an issue where the app would not give me the address, and I'm trying to refresh it, logging in and out. And once I logged out, it triggered a response from the app because it lost my location. Once you log out of the app, then you break the location, and then now they see it as they cannot track where you are for the load, and you run the risk of them taking you off the load altogether. So that's something to watch out for as well, even on the Curry app. As I stated, a lot of these apps are following suit with Amazon and just kind of strictening a lot of their policies, watching where a lot of these loads are moving in and out of, and so forth. And it's just cause and effect from a lot of the different happenings pertaining to owner operators, breakdowns, and so forth. Just a whole slew of things that I won't get into right now. But Yeah, it's a bunch that's going on this last year or so. And then I missed some comments. I'm gonna just peek back through. You want to Jay Dillard, man, I appreciate the acknowledgement. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I just try to bring the facts. That's all I can really do. And yeah, as they come up, and sometimes I'm not just right there to, bring you guys up to speed. But yeah, as different things come up, I try to make people aware just so they avoid a lot of the issues. Because as I stated, as the industry gets somewhat saturated, of course, cause and effect, the rules are going to stiffen. We've seen that with Amazon Relay. We now see that with Curry, Mothership, and so forth. So we have to do what's necessary to set ourselves apart as carriers in order to be, I don't considered for a lot of these opportunities, because they're just getting strict. And it's like to the point now where certain things are purposely being implemented in order to exclude certain individuals. I see that as well. Like, it's things that's being implemented to exclude certain individuals. And a lot of talk goes on about what's going to happen with Amazon Relay. And honestly, nobody really knows. I honestly think, that Amazon may always, and this is just my thoughts at this point and period of time, could change in 3 to 6 months. But I think Amazon may always keep independent contractors to some capacity. And the reason why I'm starting to kind of think that is because that is probably why the rules are stiffening to the extent that we're seeing them. Because it's more saturated, it's more carriers and more trucks available. But some way they have to weed out a bunch of individuals. And that's just a smart business practice. So as they implement more trucks, I think that the ratio, it has to change. That's just common sense. And when I say ratio, I'm speaking pertaining to independent contractors versus the DSP personnel. But I think it's a reason why they're stiffening the rules to the extent that they're stiffening them. And I think they want to set apart the good carriers, the okay carriers, and the bad carriers, and decide who they want to allow to continue to run Amazon Relay as opposed to who they don't. And that's just kind of what, I take it as, because it has been a lot of rules implemented that are, stiffening, just the day-to-day operations. And even some of the 3PLs, I've talked about that, have gotten stricter on the processes. You used to go in and they wouldn't even have a BOL for the freight, and you just pick it up and you go. And now you see where they're taking pictures, they're writing stuff down, they're tracking freight a lot more closely than what they did, say, 3 years ago. Like, then you just roll in somewhere, pick up freight, and go. And they will hope for the best. And I think over time, we saw a bunch of different incidents due to those type of dealings. And that's why now it's been a 360 type deal to where now, in order to get a load, they want to know the year, make, model, and VIN of the truck, who the driver is. It's just a bunch of different factors. You need to have a current inspection. I'm hearing the individuals unable to get loads because they haven't had a inspection within the last year. So people have worked with brokers in the past. The brokers know them, but because they don't have a current inspection, they still won't give them a load. So that's what's going on out here on a day-to-day basis. And you just got to protect yourself. And like I said, make sure you're eligible for the opportunities that are coming up because they're here. Now, how long? I don't know. I expect it to look good at least till the beginning of the year. I'm thinking that's as far as I want to speak on. But I think the next couple weeks look good. If they're anything close to what we've seen this last 3.5 weeks, then I think we're in good shape. Now, after the first of the year, we could see this roll into the 7th or the 15th of January, because I don't know where the money coming from or who's buying all of this freight. But I'm being honest with you, it's an elevated amount of freight moving around right now. Like, people are spending money. So this could last into mid-January. But like I said, I'm almost sure we'll see it remain solid to the end of the year. The 29th, the 30th, at least. And we all know in January, a lot of these companies, almost all of these companies, and not just logistics companies, but they have to do an inventory. And in order to do inventory, everything must stop. You cannot have freight moving in and out while attempting to count everything in a facility. So we know in January at some point it's going to get slow. That's just common sense, and you don't have to be a genius in trucking to understand that. But most of these companies have to do a yearly inventory. And from what I've seen in trucking, that'll occur sometime mid-January to the beginning of February, give or take. So that's something to think about as well and just prepare for. That way, because what you'll see too from individuals who have not, been in the space for a period of time or are not so experienced is like a grave panic. Sometimes it's shocking how slow it'll get in January and February to the point where individuals will just quit. They'll give up on their trucking company based off that 2-month time frame. Similar to how individuals will build a trucking company based off of October, November, and December. Well, January, February, March, we see a lot of the same. People come in pre-peak and people exit post-peak. So we see this every year. I expect to see a whole lot of the same in 2025. You'll even see it in the space that's usually when a lot of that rhetoric occurs is the first quarter of the year, where individuals just begin to exit and seek other opportunities because they base what's going to happen in trucking or in their trucking company off of January, February, and March. And you cannot go off of that quarter of the year. It's not going to be telling. And once again, we could see something different from what we've seen here these last few years. But in my opinion, it'll last at least till the beginning of January. Damn, I thought he wasn't going to show up. Great Polo in the building. What's happening, Great Polo? I also believe Amazon will continue to rely on contractors as they benefit significantly from those who may not have a clear understanding of their cost per mile. Hey, that's great input, Andre Corbin. Something that brings up something that I ain't even, touched on in the space as of yet. Mothership. And that's how other individuals from different spaces or companies follow a lot of what happens in the trucking space here on YouTube, because even Mothership within their app has implemented a feature where for each load, they calculate your cost per mile for you. And I've seen that within the last maybe 2 or 3 weeks. It's a feature where when you book a load or before you book a load, they allow you to input what the cost of fuel is in your area and other different amounts. And it will, in the app, calculate your cost to run a particular load for you. So that's something, if you have not seen, you may see in the coming future. And yeah, it's a bunch of different things being implemented. And I hope some of this stuff will help carriers, as I stated, just be more profitable overall, because that's the goal when we're out here on a day-to-day basis. And I think that's why a lot of individuals get excited during this time of the year, because right now, like I said, I see people in the Facebook groups just throwing out numbers, and it's due to lows sitting, and they're able to either one, negotiate with the AI relay load board assistant due to them having a heightened load board performance score, or something of that nature. You also could get loads off of DAT. So I know individuals who will wait for the loads to end up on DAT's load board, which in a lot of cases, sometimes individuals say be double what you see on Amazon's load board. But as I stated, Amazon is doing a lot of negotiating behind the scenes now within the windows with this AI assistant. So once you negotiate a rate within the window, it'll give you a book button and you book it there. And you're the only person that see what that load's been booked for. So that's kind of taking it away from the load board. And that's why it kind of just leans towards certain carriers, because if your performance score isn't at a certain number, which is, I believe, a 96%, then it is no negotiate. you don't even see the feature. The button's there, but it never lights up. When you have the proper performance score to be eligible, then you can click on the button because it kind of jumps and it has like a red dot in it. But that's when it's active. If you have a less than 96% for a month, you won't see that button for a month. That's just kind of how it goes. That's a yeah, it is. And you still have to do a little legwork because you got to know the cost for a few, which here on average is, I want to say between 335 and 365 per gallon. So that's something to think about as well. But I mean, you have to input them numbers in order for them to get you to, what your cost is to run the particular load. But I know some of their loads require a little more than, some people are willing to do to complete them. So that may, be a feature they're inputting to kind of try to make the loads make a little more sense. But you got to be careful. And it's not just on one app, but any app. Even with Amazon, certain postal facilities and so forth, individuals just don't like to go to. And what you'll see is those postal facilities will have higher rates. So I see it all the time. Like, in some of these postal facilities, like I said, it's early in the morning, it'd be a bunch going on. And a lot of this stuff just up in the air, from the drop times to how much freight they're getting to issues that drivers may encounter in the facilities. So all of this affects these drop times and so forth. But like I said, overall, pertaining to peak season, I think it's been solid. I don't think a lot of individuals in most of the main areas where we see the fulfillment centers, I haven't seen a whole bunch of complaints, and it could all abruptly just drop off. Who knows? But as I stated previously, I will utilize the opportunities while they are here. And that'll be my best piece of advice to you guys. And as I stated, just take care of these trucks in this cold weather, because that's going to hinder a lot of people as well. And it may sound redundant, but wait 2-3 weeks down the line and then come back and you'll kind of see what I'm saying. It just happens out of the blue. And usually it's to a bunch of carriers all at once during the worst period of time. So just look out for that. And I plan to do a lot more of these, maybe 2 or 3 per week. So look out for those. I'm going to get back on some of the later live streams as well. I'm just working on a few things there. But yeah, I'm keeping you guys updated this year pertaining to peak, the gig apps, maintenance, everything. So I'm trying to stay just more current and consistent with these. Come on, Great Polo. Don't get sensitive on me now. Amazon should be paying the owner operator for waiting on the post office to open. Most of the time, drivers are. That's something else I'm going to touch on, because I'm seeing that. And just be honest, because I don't have, either way, it's not benefiting me. Most of the time, from what I see, the USPS workers are there around the time they're supposed to be. But that's just in my area. I have been seeing online in different groups that individuals will say that they're experiencing issues due to the postal workers not being there. Say your arrival time is 5:30 a.m. And we all know these schedules are tight. I've talked about that. So if your arrival time is 5:30 a.m. and you normally have, I believe, is it 12 minutes to drop? And you're supposed to be back out of there. So if somebody arrives late, and especially at a dock where you're unable to unload in advance, or you're waiting on another truck, which happens often. A lot of the people that are out here, you may show up at 5:30 a.m. and it's another individual unload. So then you got to wait on him to unload in order for you to dock and begin your unloading process. And this will throw off times as well. But in my market, for what I've seen most of the time, the USPS workers are there. A lot of individuals complain about them not being there when they arrive, which is actually something totally different, because you'll pick up a load at 11 p.m., 1 a.m., and it take you a couple hours to get to your first post office. So you there by 3 a.m. But your actual drop time or your standard arrival time is not till 5 a.m. Well, that's not on Amazon or the postal facility, because you have a standard arrival time. So if you choose to get there early, then you need to figure out what you're going to do for that 2 hours, hour and a half, or whatever the time frame is until you're supposed to arrive. So a lot of people complain about not being able to drop when they're actually early. But if you arrive and the USPS postal worker isn't there and available to receive the freight, then yeah, it's usually a sticky situation, because one, you got to contact ROC. 9 times out of 10, they're going to tell you to proceed to the next post office. You probably got to wait 30 minutes, then move on. And then in the end, you'll have to either double back or return the freight to the Amazon fulfillment center. And then they'll have to re-deliver it the next day. So if you can't drop, yeah, it's a rough situation. But in most cases, what I've seen, worst case scenario, individuals just have to wait maybe, an extra 15 to 30 minutes. And the app is supposed to pick that up, and then you not be penalized, but just be watching it, because that following week, if you are penalized, then you want to dispute it, and then it should be removed immediately, because they should see in the app. I just had a situation like that where I was delayed at a post office because the lift wasn't working. The remote had froze, and the postal facility worker wanted the skids drop a certain way. And I literally just could not do it. So it took me longer than expected. It was extremely cold outside. And yeah, these situations arise. And I tell individuals it's 3, 4, 5 a.m. So some of these postal facilities are just waking up. It's a whole lot of room for error. And you just got to know the procedures to contacting ROC, notating the trip in the trip notes, and so forth. That way you protect yourself from any issues in the future. Because if it's an occurrence, you want to notate it. You don't want to just leave and then, leave it up in the air, because oftentimes you'll hear about this stuff later. So if I have a issue, say 5 a.m. Friday morning, by 10, 11 a.m., I'm reaching out to whoever I need to reach out to. And right then I'm notating the trip to say this occurred, because even like I said, infraction wise, if you notate it in the trip, your dispute process goes so much more smoothly than if just try to dispute stuff after the fact. So yeah, the earlier the better. And it's also a shorter time frame for disputes now, which I believe is 2 weeks. So as soon as you see something, you want to be on top of attempting to get it removed, because not only do you have 2 weeks to dispute it, but it's also going to be affecting your performance score in real time. So that's something you got to think about as well. Not only is it a shortened time frame for the dispute process, but you're also seeing a reduced amount of loads due to the infraction, which 9 times out of 10 may not even supposed to be there. It could be a mistake. But once Saturday goes into Sunday and the performance score resets, it's on there. And you got to deal with it until it's retracted. So that's something to think about as well. But yeah, it's been a good stream. If you're in here right now and you have not hit the like button, do so for me before you get out of here. And I believe I've pretty much touched on everything that, I had, on the table. So, I ain't going to make this way long and drawn out. I'll see you guys back here at least within 7 days. I may shock you. It may be sooner. But as I stated, hit the like button on your way out. Subscribe to the channel. Drop a comment. And as usual, while y'all running, this weather getting kind of crazy right now. So stay safe out there. That's first and foremost. Take it easy and have a good one. Appreciate y'all.